Hello and welcome to the TGH College Hardwood Podcast. I am Joe. With me is Greg Leck, as always, here to open up another season of college basketball. It's been a long off season. Greg, how you doing?
Everybody's complaining about YouTube TV and ESPN getting stuff ready for college football, and I just wanted to figure it out by Monday for college basketball.
They probably will. They're going to use this weekend to probably let people freak out over the football, and they'll probably get it done sometime this weekend, I would hope. But if not, it is a good time to remind everyone to go to alternative options if you need to and get this all figured out because there's a lot of good sports to watch in the next couple of weeks here. As you said, Greg, we have a big college basketball season starting here on Monday with, games literally all day with that all day tournament by field of 68. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We have a lot
This
to
is
talk
probably
about.
time. This is probably time for TGH to look into launching their own TV aggregating service.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they make plenty of money. We can give people a discount, be great. Um, so we're going to do this episode, Greg. We're going to do our season preview. We're going to do our week one preview all in one. I think that's what we did last year as well. So done. I think this is year three. We're doing the podcast. We're going to keep on trying to grow it, keep on doing it. We're going to try to do recordings on Sundays or Mondays and get them up before games start on Monday, just to go along with the college basketball week. Anything else about our schedule, Greg, or our podcast before we get started?
No, I think you got covered it.
All right. All right. So this offseason, there was some, I would say, decently big changes we had. The one closest to the season was Bruce Pearl decided to retire a couple weeks ago and does it so his son can get the job and is pretty open and honest about that, which pretty blatant nepotism, if you're asking me. And yes, Bruce Pearl does fit into the scumbag category that Tony Bennett set the
Mm.
precedent for, making all those kids sign on to come with play for him, and then dishes them at the last second for a guy who has not coached all that long as an assistant and has never been a head coach. But we also had some other ones, Greg. We had Leonard Hamilton at Florida State is gone. Jim Larrañaga is gone at Miami. As some notable ones, we have guys taking different jobs. Darian DeVries went from West Virginia to Indiana. John Miller went from Xavier to Texas. It's been a wild offseason in a lot of different ways. But I think the Bruce Pearl retiring is probably the most new, the most, I don't know, relevant to all this. I mean, I'm sure some of those other coaches will do good at their good jobs, but it is becoming all too often. This is the theme of coaches will just set up their family members or friends for the job right before the season starts, and I have to say I hate it. So, any thoughts on Bruce Pearl or any of the other coaches?
And I don't know if you and I have specifically touched on it. I know you alluded to it in general. The guys that signed on to play for Pearl. I don't know if we specifically touched on Tahad Pettiford, who flirted with the NBA and, probably would have been a late first round draft pick and came back and now he's playing for Stephen Pearl. I mean, I do feel for him a little bit, but you know, that's just one thing I don't know if I know we've talked about in general the player, but like I don't know if we specifically touched on his situation because it seems like in the offseason he was the most in flux where it was like he had a pretty good year last year, and obviously he came in as a 5-star, so he for sure could have gone. And it was just a question of where he would get drafted, not if he would get drafted. Now he's back and he's playing for Stephen Pearl, not Bruce Pearl.
Yeah, I think the exhibitions and the preseason games are all bullshit. To be honest, I don't think they matter. I don't read too much into them. If I think if like a number one overall team, loses to a mid major, maybe you can have a little bit of read into. But Auburn didn't look that good in the exhibition game they had, and I think that might raise some questions. But you're right. I mean, it is a roster with Bruce Pearl that you maybe expect to get some damage done in the SEC. Maybe not win the SEC. We'll talk about the SEC preview here coming up. But now you have Todd Pettiford, and you have a lot of uncertainty with this Auburn roster around him. And Stephen Pearl was known as the defensive coordinator. Do they have enough offense and ingenuity to open up Pettiford and some of the other players, or enough talent too? So that makes things interesting to me going into the season. Yeah, so Bruce Pearl is going to be on TNT as an analyst. Um, any other coaching changes that you would like to mention, Greg? I know I mentioned a couple of them, but any tidbits that stand out to you?
Just DeVries bouncing from West Virginia to Indiana. You know, do the little 1 year stint, and obviously we'll talk about this when we get into the preview. But him taking um, his son Tucker with him over to Indiana after they let go of Mike Woodson, so that was just a little interesting revival, hopefully for Indiana basketball.
Yeah, we're gonna see. I mean, we're hearing this with college football as well, but sometimes like maybe taking the Indiana job isn't that much better than West Virginia too. Like we're talking right now that Ole Miss might be similar in job standing to LSU, as at least as a talking point. I think LSU is still a much better job in college football, but Indiana has the history. West Virginia might have just like better people to work with behind the scenes. I don't know the situations between the two universities, but it's just worth saying that we might see more coaches stay at these jobs. Because of the revenue share, because of maybe it's easier to work with, and because maybe they don't have to deal with politicians getting in their business.
Hey, you can't make that comment about Indiana football right now. You made an allusion to football. That
Uh,
Indiana job's looking pretty good right now. So
yeah, and their coach, to my point, is deciding to stay there instead of go to Penn State. So maybe people will stay. I don't know. All right, so we're going to get to our conference previews. We're going to do the five bigger conferences first, then we'll kind of clean up anyone else that we had missed. Greg, let's start it off with the ACC. This is a conference that has been a little bit down over the last couple of years. They typically get a couple teams in the tournament. When you have to go to Brad Brownell and Clemson is one of the teams that have kind of carried water for you in the tournament. That's not the greatest thing. But I do think it's going to be a little bit deeper this year. So let's start off with who you think your champion's going to be or any impressions you have about the ACC overall.
um I am gonna pick Duke to win the ACC title. I think a couple of these I don't want to say are necessarily no brainers, but on paper, when you look at a couple of these conferences, I feel like there's a right team to pick. But I also think when you're looking at a couple of these conferences, there's decent. I don't want to call them dark horse candidates, but there's other contenders. I am with you. I think it's going to be a deeper ACC. Um, I think that we're going to see probably. I mean, if you had to put a number on it, well, I'll just ask you. You think over or under 5.5 ACC bids this year?
Trying to remember what I had in my preseason bracketology, which is out. I had, let's see, I'm going through it. I had Duke, I had Louisville was for sure. NC State, UNC is four, Notre Dame is five, and that was it in the field. I think I had SMU maybe on the cusp in a playing game, maybe, so it's right there around 4 or 5 for me.
And I think that's the thing. I think those are all pretty set in stone, barring injuries. Um, but I think when you look at the rest of the league, there's definitely some potential for one of those other teams that we didn't mention to have a decent season, and maybe make um, Tuesday or Wednesday night playing game type deal. Make that. So I thought 5.5 was a good number to give you. So definitely a little better than it's been the last couple of years with the ACC.
Yeah, definitely is a better year for the ACC. I'm going to say my champion is Duke as well. I mean, again, not really going to go too far on this one. Just Cameron Boozer's awesome. They have a lot of guys who are returning. That mix, I think, is going to be good. I think Isaiah Evans is going to take a nice step. We talked about him a lot last season as a guy that maybe should have played more. Maybe they wanted more consistency out of him, but weren't getting consistency from some of their other people as well. So I don't know. I think he's going to be a star, and we'll have to see. I think the biggest question for them, Greg, is just the point guard spot and like do they have someone reliable? Can that be Caleb Foster? Can it be just they run the offense from through Cameron Boozer? That'll be something to watch. Uh, if they weren't going to win, I probably would say Louisville. I really like their roster that Pat Kelsey has constructed. I think Ryan Conwell's going to have a big season there after his stint at Xavier, and Michael Brown looks like he's living up to some of the freshman hype. So I think that could be a team to watch out for too. And I think I mentioned them with just the other teams in the tournament. NC State's a team to watch too. I mean, Will Wade's coached very well. Now he's able to pay players legally, and it seems to be working well. That roster he constructed at NC State. So there's a couple contenders there. I think it's going to be maybe still only 4 or 5 teams in the tournament, but still like I think maybe better basketball too, which will be nice. All right, Greg, let's go to your player of the year.
Um, I'm really tempted to take Marcus Burton just because I think, is going to just put up ridiculous stats for Notre Dame. I think he's going to be the focal point in that offense. I think there's a couple of. I'm going to take Cameron Boozer, just again because of um, some of the things we've been reading during these exhibitions and preseason and whatnot. I think there's going to be a recurring theme, as we go through a lot of these conferences. There's a lot of depth in college basketball. I think this is going to be a good freshman class. We've already seen some of that early on. A lot of foreign players are coming over that are previous pros with the change in college basketball rules. There's just going to be a lot of talent depth. Um, you know, so there's several options here. I would, like I said, I would like to take Marcus Burton, but just what I've been hearing recently of how complete Cameron Boozer's game is so far, I'm going to take Cameron Boozer.
I'll say that I'm with you. I think Cameron Boozer does win the award. We see the freshmen come up, and the freshman class is amazing. And honestly, it could be him. It could be Michael Brown as a freshman in this conference that really step up and get the job done. But I think, yeah, I would have said Marcus Burton too. There's a lot of people who expect Notre Dame to get to the tournament, me included. Some people don't still, like, and they think, hey, they lost some key pieces from their team last year, and like, how did things change? But he's going to put up a lot of points, and I think he could be like one of the guys at the end of the year where it's like, honestly, Greg, people like me and you who watch more of the games will be pounding the table for Marcus Burton, but Cameron Boozer just might just win it because of his name, because of Duke. Um, and he might be deserving as well, but just I think Marcus Burton needs some more shine as well. So I will say Cameron Boozer is going to win it as well, but I do like the call out by Marcus Burton, and I definitely see a world where we would be talking about him as a possible ACC Player of the Year, if not maybe even more like All American type guy. All right, so next category up we had, Greg, is the impact transfer, the best transfer, or one of the transfers you want to highlight in this conference.
Oh, um, I think you already mentioned one in Conwell. I think Louisville's got another in Isaac McNeely. I would probably be very comfortable going with either of those two. Just to differentiate from you, I'll go with Isaac McNeely. But I am with you. I like the completeness that roster Pat Kelsey has put together. Offers. They've got shooting, they've got size inside, they've got good distribution, they've got a star in Michael Brown Jr. running the show. I like everything they have together, but as far as transfer, um, I like the shooting that Isaac McNeely brings in. I mean, I know Cromwell also does, but
Yeah, I was down in Conwell and Darion Williams for NC State. I mean, pretty much everyone on NC State would be picked here with how Will Wade does things. Um, I'll go Conwell though. I think Williams would be a good piece of that NC State team who might get recognition, but I think Conwell has a chance to really impact things more. Had a very great season at Xavier in the Big East. I think they're going to need both Conwell and McNeely to space the floor for Brown and some other bigs. I like Pat Kelsey's offense. I think there is a world where he scores 18 to 20 points a game, possibly ACC Player of the Year conversation, and possible All American conversation as well. So, big fan of his from his time at Xavier. Very sad to see him go to Louisville, but I do think he could be the best transfer in the conference this year. All right, last category. Who is the freshman you're watching in this conference, Greg? Who's the freshman who's going to stand out? We already talked about him a little bit because he entered the Player of the Year, but anyone else you want to mention too?
yeah, we talked about Cameron Boozer, both of our pick for Player of the Year. There's Michael Brown. There's Caleb Wilson at Carolina. There is a lot going on in terms of freshmen, and this is going to be a recurring theme.
Yeah, I mean Cameron Boozer's the one to name immediately. I will say I've seen some of the preseason lists, maybe by some by Field 68, where Caleb Wilson's pretty far down those lists, which just doesn't match up with his recruiting profile. So if you're looking for guys who maybe are getting, I don't want to say disrespected because other players on the list are good too, but maybe undervalued on those lists. I mean Caleb Wilson is a guy who could step up, and honestly, um, Greg, this year, I think North Carolina needs it just with the way their roster is constructed. If he's not good this year, they may miss the tournament. You know, I just didn't get to go too deep into their team, but Kyan Evans from a transfer from Colorado State, Henry Visar from Arizona. I don't know about you, but like this team kind of concerns me. And I think I had him as like a 7 or 8 seed, but it was very much a hey, the 7 or 8 seed that I don't really feel that confident about as well. So they need him to step up. I'll say he might be the most important freshman to his team. Where if Cameron Booster takes a step back, like I mean that's very unexpected, and Duke will suffer. But they have so many good players that they'll figure it out. But North Carolina may not.
Yeah, we didn't even mention that there's Boozer's twin brother is also on the team.
Hmm.
Some people out there that don't follow the sport, that's what we're here for. May not know that his brother is more of a guard because there's about a 6-inch height difference between the two of them. So I'm sure that worked out well when they were playing ball together before. We'll see how it translates to this game, but um, yeah, man, there's a lot going on in terms of I feel like there was at some point last year, maybe it was 2 years ago. You at some point during the season you made a comment about how we were lied to about a freshman class and they were better than we thought. I have very high expectations going into this season. So
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to see a lot of freshmen all over the place, just the way things are going. With the preseason exhibitions, again, take with a grain of salt, but like also they're stepping up, and there's plenty more, plenty more to go to. Like there's talks of like 3 or 4 different guys for the #1 overall pick in the NBA draft, whether that's Peterson, Bansta, or Cameron Boozer. So um, that's just going to be something to watch as we go on this season. I think it's going to be they'll be more impactful too because of the COVID years gone, and that means they're not playing against 25-year-old men. There's still some 25 and 26-year-olds in college basketball, but not as many. So
like we said, that we're mentioning, there are some foreign players coming over that are coming over from playing pro ball, but there's just not as many older bodies as there were, like Joe said,
mhm,
when we were dealing with the COVID year where, 25% of the sport was playing their extra year.
yeah. All right. Any final thoughts on the ACC before we move to the Big East, Greg?
Um, just want to touch on coaches. Coaches that I think that, should maybe be looking over their shoulder. What do you think about Earl Grant?
He's on a short lease, I would think.
Right. What about Forbes at Wake Forest? I feel like it's been a lot of they are right there and then just not able to make the tournament kind of thing. And they've had some really talented rosters, and I don't necessarily love what they're putting out this year. You think there's a chance we see a coaching change there?
I would think so. I would honestly would have thought he'd been fired for this. I mean, he develops guards pretty well, but this year you could actually see some pretty good regression, and I I think it is tournament or bust for him. I don't know what their finances are or whether they can move, but he has not gotten the job done.
The
So
last one I want to mention, I'm curious about how you feel about is Capel at Pitt.
had some decent years, but I don't know, man. I feel like that's another one where I could see it happening. Um, we saw so many legends leave the conference. I mean, with Florida State and Miami, those jobs are safe. But if those new guys kind of pass some of these teams, that gets a little bit more problematic because then you're fighting between not just the Dukes and the Carolinas and the NC States, but you're fighting with Louisville and Miami and Florida State. If those teams push in and SMU, I think a move probably happens for him too.
I lied. There is one other. It's not a hot seat coach, but there is one other thing I want to mention. Just one of those weird college basketball quirks, because I don't think we mentioned this because we didn't do an off like a middle of off season pod. But Virginia's new coach is Ryan Odom, who coached at UMBC, who beat Virginia when they were a 1 seed, and now he's coaching at Virginia. Just one of those weird
It,
college basketball things, I guess.
yeah, good hire by them. Life comes full circle sometimes, and that's really cool that they were able to get him. And as we said at the start of the show, it doesn't always work when you just pass off the job to one of your friends. So again, we'll be watching the same thing with Bruce Pearl, but Virginia, obviously Tony Bennett, right before the season, passed on the reins to his assistant, and that didn't go very well. And now they have Ryan Odom, which I think is an upgrade. And they could have just hired out Ryan Odom if he would have retired earlier in the offseason and given chance to given the chance to the university to hire him. So all right, so that is the ACC, Greg. We are moving on to the Big East. Just overall impression for me, Greg, first before we get into championship picks. This conference is kind of in danger. I know we're talking about a conference that is possibly going to benefit from the revenue sharing more because they don't have the football at a lot of these universities, and that'll help. But to me, this is like a two-team race at the top, and then there's two or three, maybe another team who's solidly in the tournament, in my opinion, and then maybe two or three other ones who are fighting for a spot in the tournament, but I would not bet on it. And that makes things a little bit interesting. Just the way some of this roster construction's gone in this conference and everything else. That's kind of how it is. So early impressions on the Big East, and then who do you have in that? I'm assuming you have one of those two teams in the top of the two-team race there.
I do, but I am so incredibly glad that you phrase it as a two-team race because that's all I've been hearing, and I think that is wildly disrespectful to Creighton. I think that team is going to
Mm.
be good. I will not. I am not here to say I'm picking them to win the Big East, but I think they're going to mess around, and unfortunately, I think this league is going to be top heavy again. But I don't think it's just a two-horse race. I like Jackson McAndrew to step up and have a good year. I like what they brought in the transfer portal between Josh Dix and Owen Freeman coming over from Iowa. I like that team. I know they're missing, their rim protector, their stalwart Ryan Kalkbrenner is now out of eligibility. That's going to make that team be a completely new look. But I like something about them, and I don't think it's a done deal that it's either St. John's or UConn. Um, I think it's going to be one of those three teams. I would be floored if anyone else even came close to winning the Big East. Um, and I'm with you, man. I just like Big East basketball is down. I guess Georgetown beat Kentucky in an exhibition, which we all know means nothing. And as Joe mentioned to me, neither point guard played for Kentucky, and it's an exhibition game, so take that for what you will. Um, but yeah, you'd think in this time where the Big East has, at least an on paper advantage over some of these bigger conference schools with the revenue sharing, you'd think they'd be flourishing right now. And it really just seems like a couple teams at the top are, and the rest are just kind of really average. Um, I don't know that there's a particular thing I can, point out. Obviously, Sean Miller leaving Xavier, that makes them take a step back. But, and Villanova's got a new coach, and but like, there's not really one thing that I can point to and say this is why I think Big East basketball is where it is. Um, that's enough for that tangent. But
Yeah.
um, I think for the champion though, I'm gonna pick Saint Yukon.
Okay. I am going to take St. John, so we'll be on opposite sides of the coin there. Um, I like Creighton. That was the team I.
You did not catch. You did not. I'm picking. I was. The joke was I'm picking both teams.
Okay.
I picked
Yeah.
Saint Yukon. You did not catch that. That
Okay.
was
So you're taking yeah St. Yukon. I thought you were all right. So your official pick is what then, Greg?
Saint Yukon.
St. Yukon. Okay. Well, we're a podcast. You have to say something. I'm going to go with Yukon since you said that last.
All right, fine. Yeah, I'll take UConn. But
I'm go.
I mean, I think it's half dozen in one, six in the other. I really do.
Yeah. I have St. John's rated higher preseason. I like what Dirk has done. I like the transfers he's brought in. Ian Jackson was supposed to take over the point guard spot. They decided that's not going to be the case, so that'll be interesting to see. Um, I think the offense will be good. I think Zuby Ejiofor on the inside will be very helpful. This is a team that I like the construction of the roster a bit better than UConn. I think UConn has a lot of talent, but I still think there's some I think everyone expects some of their guys to take a huge step forward, and I actually think that the guy who's might be the best player on the team this year uh, might be the guy who transferred in from Georgia, Silas Demery, too. So I don't know. I think that's going to take some time to get used to, and I don't know. I like St. John's players better. We'll see what goes on with that. You mentioned Creighton. I do like Creighton. They're the team that I had solidly in the tournament. I do wonder they were an 8 seed last year with Kalkbrenner with some other guys. They were now gone. I have faith that they'll keep it rolling. I just don't know that it'll be at the top of the Big East level. I think the point guard spot with Nick Graves will be key coming in, transferring in, and from a smaller conference and coming in and trying to keep that level of play up. We saw a couple of years ago Stephen Ashworth even going from Mountain West to the Big East. Maybe took a little bit of time to adjust, and then he became a star down the stretch the last 2 years he played there. Um, but I'm with you. I do like Creighton a bit. I just think St. John's and UConn might be a step ahead, and I like St. John's more than UConn. I mean, there's just so much talent on even Bryce Hopkins too. I think this is going to be um, a lot of pressure on Rick Pitino to play the right players. We saw he's not afraid to bench certain players last year with RJ Lewis getting benched at the end of the year in the tournament. So I think he's going to mix things together. And one of the we don't really have this category, Greg, so I'm going to throw it in there now. The glue guy I think I like the most in college basketball. I liked him last year. Is Dylan Mitchell. He doesn't need to touch the ball to be successful. I know John Rothstein tweets that out all the time, but like he plays defense, he rebounds tough, he can kind of guard multiple positions. That's a guy who I believe is coming off the bench for them and is going to be, I think, really impactful to them winning. I think it's something that they have that not many people have in this conference. So I'm going St. John's, you're going St. Yukon or whatever you're saying. So
I'm going UConn.
okay, he's going Yukon. Let's move on to the next category then. We'll go to player of the year in the conference, Greg.
I'll take the artist formerly known as Solomon Ball, now Solo Ball. Shot the lights out of the ball last year. Has a big NBA looking ready body. I think he balls out, no pun intended, and helps UConn win the conference.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of thinking about Ian Jackson here, and then we got like the whole he's not playing point guard thing, and I'm just kind of like, now I don't know. I mean, we'll see how it plays out. I'm just not going to pick it in the preseason. I'm going Silas Demery Jr. out of UConn. I think yes, St. John's can win the conference, but UConn can have the player of the year. 13 and a half points per game last year at Georgia, 3.1
At where?
assists at Georgia.
My
Okay.
boys.
Oh God. Uh, and he's like a bigger guard that I think will make them tougher to guard in a lot of ways. So I'm gonna go Silas Demery. There's also definitely arguments to be made for Ian Jackson, for Zuby Ejiofor. I'm not an Alex Caravan guy. He's on my Big East first team, all Big East first team, but I don't think he's gonna stretch fours are tough, Greg. I don't think he can put up enough stats to really be a player of the conference, but that's just my
Unless
my
you're
opinion.
an elite shooting stretch for it, like elite shooting stretch.
Yeah. So he's going to be a very good player for them. He's going to help them win games. I just, in terms of getting those stats and everything, I don't know about that. Let's go next to the best transfer or impact transfer you want to talk about.
As far as transfer, I feel like it's got to be either Ian Jackson or Silas Demery. I do like both of them. I will go with Ian Jackson, even though it sounds like his role is changing last minute.
Yeah, that's not a bad pick. I'll stick with Demery since I picked him as player of the year. If I need to take another person just to switch it up and give another person, I mean, Jackson's right there. But throw in the guys you said earlier, Greg. Throw in Owen Freeman from Creighton could have a really big year for them, and I think that is one of the things that the top teams in this conference are doing is they are adding plenty of key transfers. Even like we said, Josh Dix and Nick Graves at Creighton. Um, I think Jason Edwards at Providence. I mean, they're just down the list. I mean, even Bryce Hopkins transferring from within conference from Providence to St. John's too. So um, I like this conference's transfers. Greg, last one we have freshman of the season here. Where are you going with this one?
Well, I was gonna pick Braylon Mullins, and now it sounds like he's gonna miss some time, which it sounds like it would be mostly non-conference seasons, so that makes me kind of want to pivot to um one of these St. John's for I don't know. I feel like I still want to pick Braylon Mullins and just leave it at that. But him getting injured, obviously we have the benefit of doing this podcast like at the death before the season starts. But if you'd have asked me, a couple weeks ago, I probably would have said Braylon Mullins. So that's probably just what I'm gonna stick with.
Yeah, I mean, we said it last year, Greg. This is not a conference that recruits very well. I think based on 24/7. They have two top 50 recruits, three top 50 recruits. Um, you know what? I mean, I'll say Caden Lewis for Villanova. A very good point guard. He's ranked 48th in the class. They kind of need him to be great. So I'll say him just because of Braylon Mullins missing time. But Braylon Mullins is the easier pick here for freshman of the year. All right. Any final thoughts on the Big East, Greg?
Um, just touching on, with coaching changes, Kevin Willard now at Villanova feels very strange, but I guess he's back in the Big East. Marquette takes a step back. Just they lost a lot from last year's team. Um, that's pretty much it for a big overview.
Yeah, I guess spoiler for bracketology that I do. Marquette's not in the field for me. I I don't like the way Shaka Smart's running his program. It's all well and good to say, "Hey, I'm going to recruit guys and then develop them." He was aided in the last couple of years by having guys come back like Cam Jones for multiple years. You're asking a lot of guys who have never done things like Cam Jones or Tyler Kolek to really step up without any transfers and without any. I don't think they have a top 100 recruit, or they have one top 100 recruit, Nigel James this year. I don't know about this one, man. I'm just saying, I think this is a slippery slope for Marquette. I think this is the year that things, like you said, really fall off, and it could go way worse if they don't start using the transfer portal. I'm not saying that every team needs to be built the same way. I'm not saying that every team is going to fail if they don't use it like in a wide scale, but how can you see teams like St. John's and UConn at the top of the conference just keep on getting transfers coming in and you sit there at the same thing? Like it's disaster. It's probably gonna be a disaster area. They could make the tournament this year. I think is the ceiling is make the tournament, maybe lose first round, but after that, I mean, I don't know what's gonna happen to this program. I think Shaka Smart could be on the hot seat very quickly. All right, so let's go to the Big 12, Greg, one of the best conferences in college basketball. This is a conference that I think a lot of people are going to pick one team to win because of their success and their toughness. But there are several good teams in here that if the top team slips up or the top maybe two teams slip up, I think there's about three or four teams, maybe five or six, who could compete if it all goes well for them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna pick Houston to win the whole thing. Um, I know they're losing a lot from last year. Um, and obviously the loss in the title game hurts, but they're keeping a good core between Uzan, Sharp, and JoJo Tugler. Probably going to be one of the best defenders in the country. They're bringing in some key freshmen, so I like them to win the Big 12.
Yeah, I think I'm taking Houston too. They're making said their mix of freshmen and with the experience, I think is going to be good. Get Miles Uzon back, who flirted with the draft and everything, is huge at the point guard spot. I may have gone Texas Tech if they would have kept everyone, and they do have a team that is capable of winning the conference. But I like the certainty with Houston. Like getting JT Toppin and Christian Anderson back for Texas Tech is great. Very tough team. Could end up making a Final Four. Don't get me wrong, but Houston's done it, man. And the one thing I trust about their team is they're not going to play some of these freshmen unless they're ready physically to play and defend. So I'm going to go Houston as my champion. Greg, next category is Player of the Year in the conference.
I thought hard about this one, and I think there are so many different ways that you could go with this. I just think that JT Toppin is gonna put up stats all over the place. I think he's gonna score, he's gonna rebound, and I know some of these freshmen are probably gonna be electric. And I hate, like it almost feels dirty to do this, but I'm gonna take JT Toppin.
Yeah, I hate going chalk as well, but you kind of look at the landscape of things too, and it's like he obviously dominated all last year, Greg, but like who's gonna stop him in this conference this year? It's not a conference that has like a ton of good. guys who can match up with him as this like athletic four player, sometimes can play the five, small ball five. There's just so many different ways you can use them. You talk about other forwards in the conference who should be expected to be good this year, and it's like, AJ DeBansta, freshman, might not even guard him because he's a little bit uh, thinner. You got Momcilovic from Iowa State. That's not a good matchup for Momcilovic. Joshua Jefferson at Iowa State is maybe too big and not as mobile. Um, JoJo Tugler is a good one. I think that's like the one guy I kind of see here who's not like a freshman who I like. I know that like he'll at least give him a matchup, right? So I think just
Right.
the
14 other teams got to find a way to match up.
yeah, I'm sure he won't have 100% good games, but I like the way it's going to go for him. I think he's going to have a good season, and yeah, I think that there could be some freshmen who push him, but we will save that for our freshman talk. Greg, which freshman do you want to talk about?
Oh, take your pick, man. Throw a dart at the dartboard. There is a lot. I mean, we've already mentioned Darren Peterson. We've mentioned AJ DeBonsa. We haven't even touched on the Arizona freshmen that are coming in. Koa Pete, and I know I'm forget. Oh, Braden Burries. There's there's a lot of quality freshmen in this league. Um, Gosh, man, I'm gonna pick Darren Peterson. I know AJ DeBonsa has been, billed as, the next everything, but I'm looking at this Kansas team picked to be, upper middle of the pack in the Big 12. Thinking about, what we've already seen him do, um, in these exhibitions. Seen some Kobe Bryant, uh, kind of metaphors for him, which he hates, by the way. I heard some interviews that he did. He's like, that's my goat. I don't want to be compared to him, which is fair. It's humble. But I'll go with Darren Peterson. But I would not be surprised if you could say like three other names for this, and I would be like, okay, I can see that.
Yeah, I think it's for me, it's Peterson, and I think a lot of it's situational. I think Debansta might be the higher draft pick. I think he might be the guy that's like higher upside in the NBA. But college basketball, guards game, I mean, BYU has Richie Saunders, who like deserves a lot of credit too. So like if they do well, I think the credit's going to be a little bit split, right? Um, Kansas needs Darren Peterson to be bad. Like this is like the worst going into a season I think people have felt about Kansas in a long time. Like I had him as a 7 seed in the bracketology. That might even be high. They're counting on Marco Jackson to come back and play minutes after being injured and not really living up to the hype originally. Flory Badunga is going to have to take a huge step forward. Trey White comes in as a transfer. Melvin Council comes in from a transfer, but like I don't think they're the deepest team. I don't know where they're going to get their scoring if it's not from Darren Peterson on a consistent level. Melvin Council maybe will help with that, but like he has to be good. And if he isn't, then like maybe he doesn't win Player of the Year. But if he doesn't win Player of the Year and doesn't like put himself in that like at least in the conversation, Kansas probably misses the tournament. And that's I mean we haven't seen that in 25, 30 years. So
So
I
I
was
am glad you brought that up because that is one of the things I want to follow this year is new look Kansas without, post Hunter Dickinson era and how much different the offense looks. I'm assuming it's going to be more free flowing. I'm assuming there's going to be more ability for these guards to get to the basket and whatnot. Um, so I am with you. I wouldn't be surprised if we looked up halfway through the season and Kansas is ninth in the Big 12. But I also wouldn't be surprised if we looked up halfway through the season and the offense is it's going, it's churning, and Kansas is tied for third in the Big 12.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think, especially if Peterson plays up to his potential, that's definitely in the realm of possibility. And you do have to make some adjustments here, and maybe some of it's positive with losing Dickinson. Some of it might be like tough at the start where you don't have that guy you can just throw it to in the post as much. Like Flory Badunga is not that guy, but the defense is better, and maybe that'll be something that moves them to getting some more wins. All right, so next category we are going to do is the transfer category. Greg, who you got?
Oh, that is a great question. Why don't you give me an answer and
Okay.
I'll decide if I like it or not.
Okay, I'm going PJ Haggerty from Kansas State. um, I don't. I know you're flipping through right now, Greg. I have another guy that I really like and would have picked if it wasn't for PJ Haggerty, just being a guy who could score 20 points any given night and going to Kansas State and you have to carry the load. but
So
it's
I'm gonna be totally honest with you. That's who I wanted to pick, but I feel like it's hard to pick. Like it's hard to pick a guy that I feel like the team, regardless of how good he is going to be middle of the pack at best. I mean, they could surprise, and if he puts up 22 a night, all of a sudden they're competing for a bid. But
mhm.
I don't think they're going to be that good. But that is,
Eh,
if you just look at paper and just say what he's going to be asked to do for that team and what he's been every stop he's been at so far, I feel like that's a good pick. It just I don't like the idea of taking a guy that is going to be on a middle of the pack team. Um, it makes me want to look at, I don't know, like Skillings having a great year at Baylor or something. Like, but he's clearly not the player that PJ Haggard. But I just want to look for a team that could maybe flirt with the upper echelon of the Big 12.
I'm with you. I mean, he's going to be possibly 20 points per game guy, and he might be on a team that's really bad, and
And
that's
that's the thing. That's what he's been. You're not asking him to
yeah.
do anything different than what he's done before,
Mhm.
and he's done it in multiple teams in multiple conferences. But it's
Yeah.
just I don't think that the supporting cast around him is really good enough for them to do. I mean, it could be, but I wouldn't put my money on it.
But just imagine how bad they'd be without him.
Correct.
That's the big thing. So like he's probably going to be all Big 12 first team no matter how bad the team is, and that's something to notice too. I'll take him. I like your Dan Skilling shout out. If I was going for like a team I think has a chance to be good, I think he's just going to get lost in the shuffle a little bit, and he kind of was last year. Rob Wright at BYU transferred in from Baylor. He was awesome last year. He was the best freshman they had. I know VJ Edgecombe's now killing it in the NBA. He was so good and so underrated. If he, I think, gets the table set for BYU in the right way, I think he could be the guy who ends up being the most impactful transfer. Like they legit could go to the Final Four with Rob Wright being a good point guard, if not great point guard. Richie Saunders and DeBansto all set up very well, and even Kebakeda. So that's the guy I would say if you're looking for a guy like, oh, this guy can help his team get to a Final Four. It's him. If I'm saying this is the most impactful transfer, as in like this dude's going to be all Big 12 first team, it's Haggerty. I think is like the closest to that we have. But I could see an argument for either of those guys, or even Skillings, if you want to make that argument as well. All right, so we already did freshman, we did transfer, we did all the categories here. Greg, any final thoughts on the Big 12? Any teams we didn't get to that you want to say something about?
No, just that BYU team has potential to be, the best BYU team in history. I mean, couldn't tell you, the school's, history 50 years ago, but you know, last year obviously made the tournament. Got to win and whatnot, but uh, that team looks deep, and I like the way you put the Rob Wright situation because, I mean, he was electric at Baylor. Sometimes he outshined DJ Edgecombe at times, you know. But there's so much going on with that BYU team that he just might be not even, I wouldn't say a cog in the wheel, but like it's a multi-headed monster. So he may not be, the or he may surprise and all of a sudden we're looking up and you know him and AJ DeBonsa are playing well together and Richie Saunders is feeding off that. I don't know, but that will be an interesting thing to look at.
Yeah, definitely. So we both kind of like Houston, Texas Tech were teams we talked about. Iowa State's another one in contention for this conference. I'll bring back a lot, Taman Lipsey um, as well at the point guard. BYU we just mentioned. Just to kind of throw some other teams and names out here of guys I'm interested to watch. Sean Abayev out of Cincinnati, the McDonald's All-American, looked like he got off to some preseason success and looks like he has some potential to rise up along with a lot of these freshmen. That's another freshman to watch. And then I like Trayson Eaglestaff, who is on West Virginia, transferring in from North Dakota. Obviously, new coach and everything. They'll see how they do, but like that could be like they could be a bad team, but fun to watch. It could be a good team. I don't know. I'm not going to rule it out, but like I could kind of see them being a bad team that's fun to watch because of Eaglestaff. And I think he had that game against what was it, Alabama last year, Greg, that like he really went off. So there's some like there's some fun players in this league, even if it's not on some of the top, 5 or 6 teams that we covered in this league. All right, so next one up, Greg, we have the Big Ten. Still no title since Michigan State in 2000. They're looking for one. Not sure they're going to get one this year, Greg, but they do have maybe the best shot they've had. I mean, I don't know. I guess you could say Zach Edey, but everyone's going Purdue. Are you going Purdue in this one?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be fine if you said, and I won't steal your thunder. I'd be fine if you said, one or two other teams, but I like the returnees. I like the core sticking together for Purdue between um, Lawyer and Trey Kaufman Wren and whatnot. And they're bringing in a couple of guys that I like. Daniel Jacobson, hopefully, gonna give them an interior presence that they didn't have before, since he was hurt last year. So Trey Kaufman Wren can play more of the four. Obviously, if for whatever reason he gets hurt again, that'll maybe make me pivot a little bit. But I like them as a complete team. I like them to win the Big Ten.
I did too. I mean, I don't know. I do have them as the number one rated team. Gun to my head, I don't know if I'd pick them as a champion, but they go through the grind of the Big Ten schedule enough. Braden Smith's experienced enough. Trey Kaufman Wren's good. And on the post, they can kind of do a couple different things. Matt Painter has talked about he worked to get less deep as a team because of all the problems it caused with people playing minutes. I think that mostly the team 2 years ago was Zach Edey, where it wasn't the cleanest. Guys on the bench weren't getting the minutes that maybe they should have, stuff like that. I understand what he was doing, I guess, what I'm saying, but I do think this is a team that you can rely on to go win the conference pretty easily. I know this wasn't a category, Greg, but I'm going to throw in a sleeper too. Illinois could be a sleeper. I They're talking about Petrovic being a possible like NBA guy. Boswell's back. Baby Stojakovic. They got both of Visic's. I don't have them necessarily that highly rated. They're 19th in my preseason top 25 because there is so many unknowns. But I wanted to throw them out there too. Like I could see this being at the end of the end of the year, and they could be right there with them. I know maybe that's one of the teams you thought would be okay if you picked them or not, but I don't.
Yep, I think Illinois U25 FIBA team. Yeah, I think they're gonna be great.
Yeah. All right, so that was a little bit off of the outline we have here, Greg. Let's go to Player of the Year in the Big Ten.
I will take Braden Smith to lead Purdue to the Big Ten title. Do a really great job distributing the ball. Knew he had a lot of assists last year, Joe, but I don't think I realized how what the gap was between him and the rest of the league until I
Yeah.
actually saw the number. Averaged darn near 9 assists a game last year. I think that trend continues. Um, I know you and I have talked about, and this is more of a general comment, general Purdue comment than Braden Smith, but they've had their struggles, at times, in getting the ball over the midline and whatnot. Would like to see, hopefully, with them adding another year of experience, them kind of calming down and being able to handle those high pressure situations. But I'll take Braden Smith.
I'll go Donovan Dent for UCLA. A transfer that they desperately needed. When they get good point guard play, they play well. It looks like he's going to play the point. Sky Clark will be like kind of handling duties when Donovan Dent isn't on the floor. Um, I think I'm kind of unclear with this team on their ability to kind of compete at the top of the sport. They're 15th in my preseason poll, but it pretty much all comes down to Donovan Dent. Don't exactly know how the offense is going to look with Mick Cronin being the head coach, but I do expect him to get buckets, and I'll pick something different. I think there's an element of voter fatigue even in college, especially when you have guys who stay around for 4 years, which is just obviously abnormal to the history of college basketball in the last 20 years or so. So Donovan Dent for me. Greg, we'll go next to the transfer that you want to point out here too.
Yeah, transfer is going to be that for
Yeah.
me. Poor New Mexico fans having had JT Toppin and Donovan Dent on their team in the last couple years. That what a tournament darling that could have been. But new age college basketball.
Yeah, this is a conference that has so many good options, but like Donovan Dent I already picked him for player of the year, so he kind of has to be the transfer. But if I can't pick him because I picked him for a different category, Yaxel Lendenborg for Michigan, we saw what Dusty May could do with two bigs in the lineup last year. He's going to have another uh, lineup that he could throw a couple bigs in there. Adimara out of UCLA, Will Shedder still there, Morez Johnson. I don't know what he's going to do with all the size. I don't know what his plan is, but I do trust him. Going up a level of competition from UAB to the Big Ten does scare me a little bit, but he does like a little bit of everything. So even if he doesn't score, if he scores like 12 points a game and gets like 7 rebounds, I think that's still good enough to be second in line to Donovan Dent. But I mean, even Greg, we have Bennett Sturts for
If you didn't mention, if his name wasn't the next name out of your mouth, I was going to say we have to get his name on tape, us saying him, because
yeah.
Ben McCollum bringing Bennett starts from D2, what is it, Northwest Missouri State to Drake, and now to Iowa. We have to at least get it on tape that we mentioned his name in the preseason.
Yeah, and to go down the list, you got Desmond Claude at Washington. I know we've had our issues with him from our time at Xavier, but he went to USC, scored a lot of points. Tucker DeVries, Indiana, counts as a transfer. We have Wesley Yates from USC to Washington as well. There's a lot of good transfers in this conference. So um, we might have to do an all conference transfer team at the end of the year and see how many guys we get on there. But it is going to be a fun conference because there is so much unknown with a lot of the transfers coming in. But yes, Donovan Dent is the front runner, and those guys, all in their own ways, have been kind of stars in college basketball as well. All right, freshman, you're picking here, Greg.
I will go with Trey McKinney out of Michigan. I think he, along with Yax, is one of the reasons that team is going to be competing for a Big Ten championship.
All right, yeah. Um, I I was going to go Trey McKinney as well. I'm trying to decide if I'm going to change it up and be different, but uh, yeah, I'll do Trey McKinney. Caden Mingo. You know what? I'll say Caden Mingo from Penn State. He's like got to be the best recruit that they've ever had. I think he was ranked 34th in the 24/7 um, rankings this year. They need him to be good. No Ace Bailey anymore. I think that they are a team that has some potential. Not like what team that's going to be like for sure in the tournament or even on the cusp, but got Josh Reed transferring in from Cincinnati as well. Um, I'll say him. He might have a clearer path to the floor than McKinney has early, so we'll say that.
Joe, you mentioned a sleeper. I want to mention a sleeper, a
Go
team
ahead.
I like that I think is getting slept on. I think Ohio State's going to be good.
Okay.
Bringing back Bruce Thornton, Mobley. Um, who am I missing? Devin Royal, who has struggled midseason last year, but kind of came on late. I am not saying that team's going to compete for a Big Ten championship, but I think they're going to end up a lot higher than where they're projected. And I know it was a 17 and 15 team last year that missed the tournament, but I like John Mobley to take a big step forward, and I think that team is going to be dynamic, especially having Bruce Thornton back.
I'm glad you got to that because I was going to say this conference has the potential to maybe not the best conference, but maybe have the most, I guess, different outcomes past the top maybe team with Purdue. Like you mentioned Illinois as a sleeper. You mentioned Ohio State as a sleeper. Indiana getting a new coach. Iowa getting a new coach. Maryland getting a new coach. Michigan with much dust you may. We even mentioned Michigan State and Tom Izzo, which is probably blasphemous on our part.
We haven't
Uh,
mentioned Oregon. We haven't
or
mentioned
yeah,
Wisconsin.
I mean, there's part of it is just so many teams are in there, but it is crazy that we've gotten that far and haven't.
Well, I have a crazy idea. So instead of having 18 team leagues that include teams from both coasts, let's split some of these leagues
Oh,
up and include like a few West Coast leagues. How does that sound?
sounds great.
Okay.
But Greg, to the point, like I do first team, second team, third team, all Big Ten. You're a big Jackson Selstad fan. He's third team all Big Ten. I have three guards in every team, and it's like that's how deep this league is. Like you go down the
I don't.
list, and
Yeah, I don't think that's disrespectful. There's a world where you could tell me Jackson Shelstad didn't even make one. There's just again, there is just so much talent in the sport this year that whether it's freshmen or returning players or guys coming playing from overseas, there is a lot of talent in this sport, and it's not just because guys are hanging around for their 17th year in college. There's a lot of depth in actual basketball talent. It's one of the things we knew we were going to get from NIL was guys staying longer. I don't think we thought maybe that we were going to get as many pros from Europe as we have, but that's been one of the fallouts of that.
yeah, and some just I don't know, like even John Blackwell at Wisconsin we even mentioned he was really good last year, has a chance to be really good this year. So just try to get all the names we can in here. And then one last name, one last thought. We are getting old, Greg. BJ Roy, Brandon Roy's son, is on Washington, and that even like Carmelo Anthony's kid, maybe because we got to see him play longer in the NBA, but like Brandon Roy feels like he's been, his career was taken from him way too soon, and
Or
uh,
knees.
yeah, and that makes me feel old. So all right, the last big conference we're going to get to, Greg, is the SEC. This is I think, a wide open conference at the top, and plenty, like we saw last year, has a chance to be the best conference in college basketball again this year. But Greg, who's your champion?
Hmm. I am going to let you go first.
Okay. Um, I think there's a decent chance Kentucky gets there, but I'm not going to pick them. I'm going Florida in the repeat. Bring back the best front court in basketball. They have guys on the bench that other teams would kill for. They have Thomas Hogg, Alex Condon, Ruben Chinyelu, probably all starting, so they have a big front line. Boogie Flan comes in from Arkansas. I expect a huge step from him. And then last year on this show, Greg, I mentioned a Princeton guard, Xavier Lee, who is now their starting shooting guard. And I feel like just to kind of stick with the brand of being like, hey, I was talking about this guy last year. I have to go with Florida as the champion. I do think it's wide open. I do think there's other teams like Arkansas and Kentucky who can really make a push towards this. But if Boogie Flan takes that step, and if Xavier Lee can just focus on scoring and like while he is going to a bigger conference, you have to worry about that. He also was in the Ivy League where he was the attention of every game plan. If now that he's playing like a lot more off ball and like has less attention on him, there's a chance he kind of still has a good season. I'll go Florida. I know it's kind of chalky. I know it's like, hey, they just won the championship, but I'm mostly picking them because of the front court all coming back, and I think the guards they did get are good fits for the team.
That is the sensible pick.
Oh boy, let's
I
go.
feel like I have picked nothing but chalk or expected champions across the board. I have to do something different because this is not how it works out every year.
Hmm.
I'll take Tennessee to win the SEC.
Ooh.
Bringing in Nate Ament, bringing over Jacoby Gillespie from Maryland. A lot of their interior stays the same. They lost Chaz Lanier. They Zakai Ziegler finally graduated after 17 years in college. But I think with again, it's gonna depend a lot on the laurels of one of these freshmen with how good we've heard he's gonna be. And with Rick Barnes' ability to seemingly pick these 1 year transfer guys to come over and star between Connect and then Chaz Lanier and now maybe Jacoby Gillespie. This is not like if I was betting money, I would be hoping I'd be getting some pretty decent plus odds on this. But again, I just feel like looking at all my other picks, like I picked Duke, I picked UConn, I picked Houston, I picked Purdue for our big conferences. The favorite is not going to win every one of these conferences.
No.
So I got to pick something, and resting on Tennessee that has Rick Barnes at the helm as opposed to Florida, who does return all of the pieces that Joe mentioned, but no more Walter Clayton and a few other key guys from last year. Maybe not as dynamic as they were, could be, but I just got to do something different somewhere. So I'll take Tennessee.
I don't blame you in the slightest. I think that is I don't think Tennessee's going to win it, but I do think this is a conference where you could pick any of the top, 5 to 6 teams, and that's fine. And if Nate Ament steps up as like everyone thinks he can, that's a good pick. Um, let's go to there's a lot more I need to say about this conference, but I think I'll get to it in the next couple of categories. Let's go to the transfer that you're looking at, Greg.
We're gonna go to transfer before we talk about player of the year.
Oh, player of the year. Sorry, let's do player of the year. Sorry, we did champion first, then player of the year.
I am gonna pick Josh Hubbard because I think it's his year to be electric and just be all over everyone's TV despite his size and knockdown bug. I think he's just going to have an awesome year, and we've already seen him have two pretty good years. But I think it's coming. I think this is his year. I still think that Mississippi State team is going to be, um, you know, middle-ish of the pack. I think there's some potential there. we could say that for a lot of teams in the SEC, but I'm going to take Hubbard.
I'm gonna go Otega Owe, preseason player of the year. Kentucky, I think, need him to be the go-to guy. I think there's a plenty of talent on the roster, but I think at the end of the day, like Jalen Lowe, very good point guard. Jaden Quaintance, very good interior player. Some of their best players. Denzel Aberdeen, I think, is a good role player, but they need the guy who can go get him a bucket. He can. He can get to the basket. Had some injury issues this offseason. He looks like he's back healthy now. Kind of plays both ways pretty well. I'm going to say him. I like the Josh Hubbard pick. If you're going for NBA potential, probably neither of our picks go, and maybe go Alex Condon, who's getting a lot of love, or Boogie Fland. But I'll take it away. Preseason player of the year. I'll stick with what the coaches said. All right, next one up is transfer of the year, Greg.
I don't know that I have a good feeling about this. I mean, I feel like maybe like Mo Diabate could have a great year filling in a gap at Kentucky. I don't know that I have someone that I'm picking out. Do you have a good gut feeling about this?
About Mo Diabate, or
No, about
okay,
a specific SEC transfer. I
I
you
do.
know I want to pick Gillespie, but I don't think he's going to be. I think Nate Amen is going to end up being the focal point. So I feel like I got to pick somebody else if that's the case, and I don't know where else I'd go. But I mean, what are your thoughts?
I will say I think there's a couple options. I'm going Boogie Fland for Florida. I feel like if I'm going to pick them to win the conference, the front court's all set. I just expect him to take a step. Jacoby Gillespie's a fine pick as well. I was thinking too, like he's not healthy to start the year, but Jaden Quaintance for Kentucky really could be a good pick. And then Jalen Lowe as well for Kentucky, and then Keyshawn Murphy for Auburn transfers from Mississippi State in conference. And those are kind of the guys I had on my short list. It's kind of what you're asking, I guess. But Boogie Fland is the one I would go with because I think he's due for a big year with the rest of that lineup, and
Could
how good
be
they could
could
be.
be either of the Keyshawn's for Auburn because they
Could be.
got
Yeah.
UCF. What's his name? Keyshawn from UCF.
Uh, Keyshawn Murphy's the one from Mississippi State, and it's Keyshawn Hall. Hall.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going Boogie Flam. What was your final one? It was Jacoby Gillespie.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, it makes sense if you pick Tennessee to be your champion, that their point guard would be
I
an
mean,
impact.
it'll make the next pick that we're making real easy for me.
Okay. Well, let's go to it. What's freshman of the year?
This is going to be Nate Ament. It's got to be if I'm going to take
Yeah.
Tennessee. If I'm going to take Tennessee for transfer of the year, and I'm going to take Tennessee to win the league. I got to pick Nate Ament.
There might only be one other person that I would consider in this category, Greg. I don't know what you're thinking, but
Cuff.
Acuff is like the only other one that's like in the stratosphere. Now, that's not to say that no one will step up. There's plenty of good recruits in here. You just kind of have to worry about some of the ones at Kentucky may not get the playing time. Some of the other like Arkansas. I don't know if there any of their other guys are going to overtake Acuff, and maybe CJ Ingram for Florida. But again, they have so many good players. So I think those are the two you're picking between. I'm with you. I'm going Nate Ament. And again, it's another player that like they kind of if they're going to reach their ceiling, I don't know what their ceiling is this year. Maybe Sweet 16. That would be conservative for me. Maybe Elite Eight. If you're real lucky, they need him to be that, right? Like for Tennessee to make that run, they need him to be that and be that shot maker because that's what we saw like Dalton Connect do for this offense. Um, they need someone like that, and if he can be that, then they can do what they've done the last couple of years. All right, Greg. Any final thoughts on the SEC before we go to more of a wide range view of anyone left over?
Yeah, I'm just curious. Looking at some of these freshmen, it feels like a lot of the bigger, and obviously we mentioned Nate Ament at Tennessee, but it feels like a lot of the bigger name, the marquee freshmen, ended up Big 12, Big 10. I'm just curious with, the money that ASCC has been shelling out, for players, and obviously they have football to worry about. Some of the other, but the other conferences that got these freshmen don't necessarily also have to wait. I'm just curious if you think there's anything to that, or if that's just happenstance with the way this class worked out.
I think it was happenstance. I think a lot of the teams for the SEC went heavy with some of the transfers, as we saw with Kentucky getting some of their guys. And I do think there was a little bit of a transition period. Kentucky's still waiting to bring in some of those top classes under Mark Pope. They think next year's class will be like that big one. They still get good recruits, Um, I don't think. I mean, CJ Ingram for Florida is a good recruit for them, but I don't think they've reached their full potential. And John Calipari's holding things down at Arkansas, but until they get Kentucky really rolling, until Florida really capitalizes on their success and kind of hits the recruiting that way, it it's going to be like that. I think. I don't know. Maybe we'll see Texas pop up here soon. I don't know, but I'm not too concerned because they're still getting players, even if it's from the transfer portal. But it is something to watch because we just you're right. We said the same thing about the Big East too, and seeing the SEC maybe not be as prevalent despite being so successful last year is definitely something to watch. All right, so I'm gonna point out two more teams for the SEC, Greg, before we move on. Just I think are underrated. I really like Oklahoma. Xavier Brown transfers in from St. Joe's. Nigel Pack transfers in from Miami. Tay Davis from Notre Dame. They got plenty of talent. I think Porter Moser can get the job done there. And then Texas A&M, Buckyball. They got plenty of transfers too. Pop Isaacs, he had a good start for Creighton last year before he ended up getting hurt. Ryland Griffin, Mackenzie Mbako, and everyone's favorite Federico on this team. So a lot of guys that we've kind of heard around college basketball world before, and I'm excited to see what Buckyball does down there. Any other teams you want to point out too, Greg? Or I mean,
So
it's so many, so
I'm
many.
curious if we get Wisconsin AJ Store at Ole Miss, if Chris
Yeah,
Beard is able to reawaken that magic. What do you think their ceiling is? Bringing back Malik Dia. They are, missing a lot of their guard play from last year, but what do you think they could look like
I
in a packed SEC?
Yeah, that's the tough part. I think they can maybe win a game in the tournament if AJ Store really does get back to that level, which I'm not projecting because somehow Greg Gard just has a way with the wings at Wisconsin. They always play well there, and then go to the NBA and don't play well, or like they get John Tonje, who's averaging 2 points at Colorado State, and gets him playing well. I don't know. It's a whole thing. I would say if he does play that well, then they are a threat to maybe go to the Sweet 16 Elite Eight. All right, let's go to the rest of the country, Greg. What teams do you think are worth mentioning in this category?
I, I got to be honest with you. I usually have somebody on my radar outside of Gonzaga, but I mean, I'm not loving anybody that I see. Not even really Gonzaga. Like Gonzaga's going to have Graham Ike, and maybe Steele Venters is finally going to get to play basketball outside of the Big Sky. But do you have somewhere to go with this? Because I don't feel like I have zoned in on a team. A10, Mountain West. Those are usually kind of our next. Maybe Memphis if you look at the American, but I don't know that there's someone that sticks out to me. I really don't think so.
I have two Mountain West teams, and then I have three teams from conferences that are worse than that. That I would say, like, watch.
I'm gonna let you take
All
this
right,
away then.
all right. So Mountain West, I think San Diego State could be a potential Final Four team. I am higher on them than most. I think that their talent is great. Um, First of all, let's start with Magoon Guath. Everyone wanted him to enter the transfer portal. He ends up staying. Defensive anchor. Um, I think I have them ranked 16th in the preseason poll. I think what they have coming back this season, Miles Bird, they have Reese Waters, who was hurt last year. He comes back. I think if everything hits the right way, I think the Mountain West can have another like very good season. I think they could be at the forefront of it. They're a team that I like the returning starters. I like that last year they went 21-10. Um, there's I don't know. They're just a team I really like. I think the defense will be locked in, and they also got a transfer from Louisiana Tech, Sean Newman, who was I think third in the country in assists last year. Um, I really like this team. It might end up being fall on my face bad that I said that they could make the Final Four, but I think that they're at least I have them 16th in the preseason. I don't feel that bad about it. I think that's perfect range. And I also like I think part of it is how the construction is, right? Like there after team 16 in my preseason poll, there's a lot of teams I don't know about. Like Tennessee, we're counting on Nate Ament to really take a step forward. Be a good freshman. Arizona's relying on a lot of freshmen. Even Illinois, I said it doesn't have a lot of things figured out. Gonzaga, like you said, just not quite the Gonzaga we're used to. I think 1 to 15, specifically dogfight. Anyone could win those games they're playing each other. But after that, it is wide open. So I feel pretty good about that. And then Utah State, my guy down there, Jared Calhoun. This one is mostly due to Mason Falslev coming back. He is probably going to be the player of the year in the conference. Um, I think they're a team that could be that second team in the Mountain West. Them and Boise State are fighting. But Greg, I know you a couple of years ago you were Mountain West Greg. I might be Mountain West Joe this year because they are. Um, I think this Mountain West could be really good. I think they can capitalize on some fluctuations from the ACC, from the WCC, maybe not being as strong too. Maybe still get two teams in with St. Mary's and Gonzaga, maybe not. I don't know. So those two teams in the Mountain West I had specifically circled, and then I have a couple smaller conference teams. You want me to get into it, Greg? Unless you have anything to say about Mountain West or those two teams in particular.
Just that it's Joe. The Mountain West Joe is only going to run 1 year because, for those who don't know, a lot of those Mountain West
Hmm.
teams are going to be moving into the new look Big 12, new look Pac-12 in a year.
Yeah, and how about Denver changing conferences the
I
other
did
day?
see that
Yeah.
WCC that was announced literally yesterday.
So I mean, it's keeps on changing. It's going to get to a point where we're just one big conference, but
Yeah, just no conferences.
no teams, no conferences. All right, Greg, I'll get to the other three teams here. You can give your thoughts specifically on one I know you've seen and may or may not like. I like George Washington this year. I think they're a real threat in the
I've heard a
A10.
lot about George Washington this year.
I
It
am
is it is hard pressed for me to believe in any A10 team this year, but
well. That's kind of the reason. Your Dayton Flyers. I don't think are a sure thing. Sorry, Greg. Um, but
well, not after their one of their top players, the guy who didn't Adam and Jai didn't pass the ball like at all in the
mhm,
exhibition we went to against Penn State, but now is involved in a gambling thing. I like
yeah,
okay, I guess that's just the new norm in sports.
yeah. It's yeah. I guess the point is, Dayton. I'm not seeing VCU as a new coach. St. Louis, I would love Robbie Avila to get to the tournament after Indiana State was stumped a couple years ago. Um, but Rafael Castro for George Washington, Trey Dinkins for George Washington, two guys I think can really bring it. Um, they're a team I'll be like I said a couple years ago with some of the teams I mentioned, like Yale, I'll be watching this year, kind of get more info on them to see if it's something I want to stay with the rest of the year. With the returning experience, the fact that the A10 is more wide open, I picked them to win the A10 in my preseason bracketology. That was, I think, um, kind of a condition. Like it was, I only had one A10 team in, but that was kind of a condition of I just don't know who to trust in this A10 with Dayton being down and with VCU having a new coach. And Dayton could end up getting to the point where we think they might at the end of the year, VCU as well. But they were one to watch out for. Kennesaw State, Simeon Cottle, 18 points a game, CUSA. And also Braden Liu is coming back as forward. He is pretty good as well. And then Illinois State, MVC is always quality basketball. And then I also have one more. USF was the team I picked to win the American. I thought I'd point that out because you mentioned Memphis. Memphis might have the least talented team they've ever had under Penny Hardaway. That doesn't mean they're not going to be good. They still have some quality players. USF is a team I think could be pretty good. They are. So they got some names people remember, like Davion Collins from Kentucky is on the team. They're gone through a lot as a program with their coach passing away last year, trying to get things back on track. And they, I think that there's a path where they win the American. And again, maybe this is more. I do like their team, but it's like seems like the American is more wide open because Memphis isn't quite as good as they usually are. And some other teams obviously left the conference in the last several years. I don't know. I think USF could be a really good team with him and Isaiah Nelson transferring in, and just I don't know, some really good players on that team too. I think are worth watching. No thoughts on those teams. You got
I think George
it.
Washington could be like what we thought St. Joe's was going to be last year.
Yeah, it
St.
could
Joe's had a
be.
lot of talent on that roster and just kind of didn't really ever get to where we thought they were. But yeah, I preseason I've been hearing a lot about George Washington, VCU with Phil Martelli Jr. at the helm. Going to be an interesting case study to see how he does. Um, I don't know, man. I think I don't know that it's going to be a great year for mid major basketball.
How dare you?
I,
Don't.
you're talking to a guy that loves mid major basketball.
I think it's wide open. I think there's enough people. There. Here's the thing. You're right. Here, I'll say it this way. I do think there's these teams that I do like, but there are less chances. I'm saying these teams because of the leagues they're in are not as good, right? Like the A10 is a one bid league the last couple of years. Sometimes they flirt with two sometimes. The American is not the league it used to be. Even the Mountain West, I think, is starting to dwindle a little bit. Obviously, they're breaking up into another conference. I like these teams. I think they would be teams I would talk about last year, but their competition for what they're trying to achieve is just not as good. Like the math does not. The math is on your side of like if it is a numbers game, only a certain amount of mid majors could win or whatever. There's less of those now than there were. I just like these teams out of the pool we have, I should say.
I just have a feeling that, and don't get me wrong, teams are going to be rusty to begin with, but I feel like last year, the first 2, 3 weeks, we had a lot of, almost this and, this, power conference team. I think to start, outside of a few exceptions, we're mostly going to see power conference teams beat the brakes off a lot of these mid-major teams that are coming in.
That
And I
definitely
will
could happen.
happily eat those words if that's not what happens, because that's what makes college sports fun for me.
Yes, I think it'll be fun if it does happen. You're right. It might just take some adjustment periods for these mid-major teams, and also just they're also in the same way as like bigger teams. They're getting players with lower levels. They have to mix those guys in with the teams. It's a different era even for them. So we'll see how it goes. Those were the teams I had mentioned. Those 5 or 6 teams are the ones I'm watching this year. If you're looking for different things to watch, I do think, Greg, that while the A10 may not be as good, watching teams like Robbie Vila for St. Louis, watching guys like that will be fun as well. So we'll keep tabs on it all year long as Greg will be going to a lot of those Dayton games that features St. Louis, George Washington, all those things, and even some nice non-conference games I know you're excited about. Greg, let's get to our weekly picks unless you had anything else before we get started. All right, on Monday, we're going to kick it all off. We have Florida and Arizona. This one is part of the Hall of Fame series in Las Vegas. Florida is currently favored by 3.5.
I will take, even going out west. I'll take Florida to win this game.
I will too. I mean, Arizona's just so freshman based right now. They could come out and really show us that the freshman class should really be paid attention to, but I'll take the experience to start. I'll take them to win pretty easily. Next one up, we have Villanova and BYU. That's also in the Hall of Fame series in Las Vegas on Monday night, 9:30 Eastern. BYU favored by 8.5.
I'm taking BYU. Good, like we said, a good mix of kind of returning talent, transfers, and freshman AJ DeBonsa. I like them to start it off rolling. Um, if they were to lose, like, there's nothing that makes me want to pick Villanova. I think if they were to lose this game, I'd be absolutely surprised.
Yeah, me too. Villanova, I think we'll get there under Kevin Willard. This first game is too much. This is a tall task. So I am with you on that one, going BYU. Going to Tuesday's games, Greg, we have one to talk about here. It is Texas and Duke. This one is in Charlotte in the Dick Vitale Invitational. Duke favored by 7.5.
Yeah, I'll take Duke to win this one. Not much that makes me think, Texas has a chance to win this game. Especially, I know it's not at Cameron, but it's in North Carolina. I'll take Duke.
Yeah, I'll take Duke as well. Hate to keep on picking favorites. I do think Texas has plenty of talent that they could compete with Duke, and if they were going to pick off Duke, this would be early in the seasons when you want to do it. But Tom Miller has already said publicly that I don't know why we're playing Duke, and I don't really like hearing that from the coach that's about to go up against them. So, all right, going to Friday, we have Kansas and North Carolina. This one is at UNC. UNC is favored by 1.5.
Darren Peterson steps out, shows the world who he is, and Kansas wins this game at North Carolina. Not a stunning upset, but I think people are a little lower on Kansas this year than they usually have been. But don't think North Carolina is a sure thing. We've already mentioned that, but it is a true road game. Correct? Yeah, I
Mhm.
think this is a return game from the Carolina at Fog Allen last year. But I'll take Kansas to win this game.
Yeah, I'm going Kansas too. These are similar teams, and then they were the Blue Bloods, but kind of not expected to be national championship contenders this year, where they're rated and everything. I'm going Darren Peterson as well. I think that their roster is constructed a little bit better than UNC, which says a lot more about how UNC is constructed than it does Kansas. And I think that Darren Peterson's a little bit more equipped to carry his team this early in the season than Caleb Wilson is right now. All right, we are moving over to Saturday, which we have some pretty good games on Saturday as well. Greg, let's start it off with Alabama and St. John's. This one is in Madison Square Garden.
I just have some questions about Alabama coming into this year. New look team. They may be great. But I'll take St. John's with everything we talked about in the preseason to kind of shoulder that Big East load and get the first game, especially since it's in MSG.
Yeah, I'm going St. John's too. I don't. I think it's going to take some time for Alabama to figure out who they are. They just lost a whole ton last year, Mark Sears and several other players. It's going to take some time, I think, for them. Or St. John's, they just kind of reloaded. That home energy will be kind of crazy. I'll take them in this one. Next one, we have Arkansas and Michigan State. This one is on campus in East Lansing, Greg.
This one is the one I think gives me the most pause because it's at Michigan State. Again, I don't know that anybody necessarily jumps off the page for me at Michigan State. I think they're going to be a solid team more than have elite players, but I'm going to take Arkansas here.
Okay, I'm going Michigan State. I think it's more so, like you said, the home court advantage in this one. Early in this season, John Calipari still getting a new point guard involved. We'll see if he lets DJ Wagner play some point guard too, just to kind of take some pressure off of Acuff. But I'll say Michigan State. This is a very tough game. And again, John Calipari's he's done this before. But he's like, I don't know why I'm going up to play, at Tom Izzo's house, and I don't. It's a fun for college basketball, but I understand his sentiment that he doesn't want to always do that with his young team. All right, so Oklahoma and Gonzaga. This one is a neutral site game, but it's in Spokane, Washington, so it's virtually a home game. It'll just count as a neutral site game, which we all hate those kind of games that they're technically home games, but not really.
I feel slightly influenced by your comments on Oklahoma on this podcast, but I just already am a little uneasy about Gonzaga to begin with. I'm going to take Oklahoma to go into Spokane and win this game.
I'll take Gonzaga. I do like Oklahoma, but I have Gonzaga ranked higher. Gonzaga, again, home game for them. This is going to be a fun matchup to watch because we do need to see some of the Gonzaga team play together for the. I know it says like for everyone, but like Braden Smith, they're not no relation to the other Braden Smith. Their point guard headed out last year. How's he going to do coming into this? Tyon Grant Foster was eligible to play. How's he going to do? See how it all goes. But I'm going to go Gonzaga with the virtual home game. If it was neutral site, I might go Oklahoma like you did. A true neutral site. All right, on Sunday we have Indiana and Marquette. This one is in Chicago, Greg. This is going to be the Tom Crean Bowl.
Yeah. Two question mark teams for me. We already talked about why for each of them. I don't have a big reason why, but I'll take Marquette to win this one.
I'm going Indiana. I'm out on Marquette this year. I mean, they can definitely step up and have guys who are somewhat talented. I just think if they need a bucket, I don't really know who you're going to, and if they can do that consistently, they just don't have that guy like Cam Jones last year. And Tucker DeVries is a guy that if he's healthy, and maybe could be that for Indiana and possibly push them towards a tournament bid. All right, Greg, that's the show for the week. Any final thoughts before we sign off?
YouTube TV and ESPN better figure it out before Monday night.
Yeah, definitely. All right, it's my turn to remind everyone to like and subscribe to the Game House channel. There's a possibility we kind of do a sub channel and have our own thing going on later in the season. We're going to see how things go. But for now, we will be recording, like I said, Sunday, Monday. Try to get things up Monday before games start every week. We hope everyone has a happy week one, figures out their TV provider issues as they go along. For now, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.